Welcome back. Special guest in studio. Okay, Josh Coltrain. It's Wildcat Wednesday. Josh from the Kansas State Wildcat Extension District office. Let's talk flooded fields.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's start with corn.
Okay.
What a record-breaking weekend, and now today we've already got an inch of accumulation today. What does it mean for the corn that's already in the field?
Like all extension answers, it depends.
Okay.
The larger the plant, the more likely it'll be to be able to sustain little damage. A younger plant can be more damaged, and it's all about where the growing point is. Ours is, in general, small enough that the growing point's essentially right at ground level. So if you have any water at ground level, your growing point is submerged. Under those conditions, it depends on a lot of factors, but essentially 2 to 4 days under that can survive. But survival does not mean ideal conditions.
Ideal yield.
Right.
You and I were talking about an interesting, maybe logistical thing people don't realize. Saturated versus flooded.
Yes.
What's the difference?
Flooded is standing water. I mean, literally standing water out there. Saturated would be, you can't see the water, but essentially the profile, the soil profile, the depth of soil that can hold water is completely full of water. So even though you can't see it, the same conditions are going on below the soil surface.
How was our soil before we had our record-breaking weekend?
We were wet. We were not completely at saturation, but we were very close. Our soils in general do not store very much moisture, so therefore it doesn't take much to fill it up.
If you're not a farmer, you're like, why does this concern me? Well, eventually it's passed on to the consumer. If we look at the flood waters that we have right now in the planting season, where does this end up 6 months to a year from now?
It's an interesting question, and just for reference sake, you talked about the wheat out in western Kansas had the snow, and our corn in our area. Unfortunately, for a farmer, very little of that gets transferred to the consumer. A rough estimate is about 17 cents out of every dollar a consumer spends goes to a farmer. Only 10 cents out of a wheat, a actual loaf of bread goes to a farmer. So it really doesn't make much of a difference on the farmer's end where the prices are.
Doesn't make much of a difference on the farmer's end.
Yes.
What does it do on the consumer end?
It shouldn't change very much. Then that is probably an important word, shouldn't.
Where are we in the planting season right now?
On corn, we should be done. Our ideal planting time ends April 25th. Unfortunately, we're not done yet, and with conditions where they are, producers are going to have to make a quick decision on whether or not to replant. I do have to say, Michael, you said don't worry about the temperatures. What's kind of interesting, warmer temperatures would actually exacerbate the problem.
Why?
An actively growing, happy plant is more likely to be killed by the flood and saturated soils. So our cooler conditions are actually a very good thing for the farmers.
So the fact that we're going to hover in the 60s for the next couple of days, that's
actually very good.
Positive thing.
Yes.
You're doing a really interesting thing, doing a research study, and you're taking a plot of corn from plant to yield. Give us an idea of where your plot stands right now.
We actually planted incredibly early, back in late February, and unfortunately it's in a very wet spot in the field. So what I've said is we're actually going to have very good evidence of how long it can stand underwater, because I'm taking daily photographs.
Oh, great.
And we're going to have literally photographic evidence of how long it took to kill it or not.
Good. Then that gives me an excuse to bring you back on, and we can keep on talking about that. Josh Coltrain from the K-State Wildcat Extension District. Josh, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mike.
Let's come back, and I won't dismay temperatures when we do our 7-day right after this.